Greetings, happy Monday, and welcome back to the RAD podcast. I am one half of your host, Larry Jefferson. As before I begin, I want to say shout out to all the Dallas Southern teams that represented this weekend with the state championships. Shout out to Sock, shout out to Duncanville, and straight great up shout out to DeSoto. So that's my spiel.
Hey, so how bad did DeSoto win, man?
I think they won by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I
Who
was
they
really
play?
pulling for this. I was pulling for DeSoto and Sock because Sock is the neighborhood I grew up in. Then DeSoto is where I graduated from. Duncanville was our rival, so if they won, it was cool. But if they didn't, it was cool too. So, but I mean, shout out to Coach Samples and Duncanville for winning as well.
Man, that's what's up, man. I don't think I can't remember the last time I went to a high school football game. It's been a grip, man.
I went about 2-3 years ago. DeSoto lost, but yeah, I said I wasn't going to this one. I was like, let me watch them on TV and see if they win.
Man, hey, we gotta go then, man. That's one thing I do miss is some high school sports. I used to go to when I was in college, man, up at Iowa State. I would go to some of the college, high school basketball games like Ames High, and just see some of the new recruits that Iowa State was trying to get, man, and watch them play. I got a chance to see that man Harrison Barnes.
Oh, for real?
Beast.
I didn't know there was no hoopers in Iowa.
Beast, man. Anyway, Dantrayl Smith, glad to be here. Super excited, man, about just closing out the semester and just hearing feedback from our guests. I always love this episode, man. It's my favorite one. Just because it gives an opportunity for us to just kind of reflect on what we've done and hear from our guests, man. Just kind of see what suggestions and things that they want to see as we move into the next year and try to make some stuff happen, man. So
It was funny. I was going through one of my notebooks and I just had wrote all these notes down. And when I write notes, at the time, they make sense. You go back to them sometimes a year later, I was like, what is this? And I start thinking like, oh, these notes for the podcast. Because I was like, what? Let's talk about sex. Like what? Like what was I thinking about that day? But it was the notes from the podcast. The good thing on it, I put dates.
right. Well,
Helps
anyway,
out.
man, let me ask, as always, man, we always start off with what were your favorite episodes, man, and why?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say 3 of them that I really, really enjoyed. The first one, and in no particular order, I'm gonna say the first one was the one when Brother Ricky Clark was on, and who was that on him with him?
Dr. Anderson, I believe.
Yeah, and man, just the not to highlight anybody, but he's just such a wealth of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and that episode was on point.
Yeah.
And then the vaccine episode I liked because I wanted to learn more about it, and then not only that, just getting to share that platform with my nephew, and for him to share it with us was special for me, even though he had been on before. But we both are pursuing these doctoral degrees, and just to share that journey in life with him meant a whole lot to me. And then just to kind of combat these vaccines, even though they took it off.
I know, man. YouTube took it off.
They said no, sir. And then, of
Right?
course, the sex episode was super fire. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm glad we did it, even though I was like, but sometimes you miss out on something and you think, oh man, we missed out on it. But we come back and we do it and we redid it again with 2 totally different people. And I think it was just meant to happen that way. Some
Right.
things you think you're losing when reality you're actually winning. So just to have that conversation and all the text messages and calls I got after the sixth episode was let me know it was on fire.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, man, I have to agree with you, man. I love the episode with Brother Clark as always. I love having him on the show because he definitely highlights a lot of I'm trying to think of the best word to describe it, but really kind of from a historical perspective, how what has happened in the past and its way of influencing how we interact today, right? And so when he
Are you a
talked
history
about
person?
what's up,
Are you a history person?
not really, a
Okay.
little bit, but I've kind of grown into it, right? Like I've never was like super big on history, but as I've gotten older, in order not to repeat the same mistakes, just trying to learn and read about it, man. But when he was talking about when he asked his class about involuntary relocation, and he was talking about, critical race theory. He's like, man, I don't even teach none of that. I don't even talk about that. I don't even get
Right.
to it. You know what I mean? Like, and then like the perception of the way he approached that particular action by the lawmakers, I was like, wow, like, that's actually a really good approach. I never really thought about it like that. And so it challenged the way that I kind of approach certain things with my
Right.
children and other conversations with other people. Like, what does this really matter when this is the real issue, what we really need to be focusing and talking about? So I thought that was good. One of the episodes I really liked, man, was the school shooting episode. Um,
No, yeah, that was on point.
I really learned a lot because, like you said, we talked about in the episode. You see so much stuff on TV, right? And so that's how you interpret what really happened. But to hear the kind of behind the scenes of all the different school shootings within the past 5 to 10 years, I thought was like, wow, like I had no idea that that's really what was going on. You know what I mean? And so it makes sense for the reason why people were kind of responding. So kind of just having that whole picture. And then of course I would say, man, I don't know, man. We had a lot of good episodes, bro.
I think I may have a three B, 3A,
Man,
3B.
right? Because I'm looking at like even the pipeline project one that we did, man. Which and your boy was talking about just how COVID really ransacked his um
In
really the
school.
people that yeah the school,
Yeah.
bro, and just to have to experience that and then come to work, right? Like just that mental anguish. That was eye opening for me. And then, man, of course, all the body autonomy episodes. I think those are probably, saying some of the favorite that I did. We did, man, with the vaccinations, the abortion
Tattoo.
laws, yeah,
Yeah.
and then the tattoos joint, man. So all in all, man, I can't say I really have a favorite episode. I just have to say, like, all of them were really good. I think the people that we brought on were just spot on. And I feel like I learned something. Like some episodes we've done in the past, I'd be like,
Ah,
yeah, it was
right.
cool, like we did our thing, but like every episode this semester, like I feel like I have walked away with increased knowledge, even starting out from with the mental health piece, doctor's
Now that
visits,
no
all
doctor's visit one, like I called my pops. I was like, so when you gonna go to the doctor? That dude has no aspirations of seeing anybody in a white coat. I don't know what they did to my dad. They traumatized him.
man. I'm gonna tell you, man, I was the same way because I was like, man, I'm spending this money, but my perception changed a little bit, man, as we've gone through this semester. But just being more intentional about the questions, right? So now when I go to the doctor, I'm asking some of those key questions and follow-up questions with my primary care physician that probably not even seeing the vaccination and the no doctor's visit episode, I probably wouldn't even ask. So
Right.
that was really key for me. What was your if you had to pick maybe um, an episode that you had no clue about, and you were like, "Wow, I had no idea that this was really going on or this was really happening." Which episode would that have been for you?
None of them. No. But I will say this. I mean, because well, one, when we're and what people don't realize, we're not just throwing these episodes up there. I mean, we're collectively thinking. Remember, we was walking down the street in Portland,
Yep.
in Portland, talking about, hey, we need to do this and we need to make it do this, and we had been, drinking, and we
Right.
still talking about the podcast as we walk, and rats are all over the dang place.
Oh
But
man, tell me about it.
to
Don't visit
do
Portland.
this,
No, I'm
to
kidding.
do this work and to do these type of podcasts, I think you got to do your research. And I read a lot for each episode, so I wasn't asking no dumb questions. I think the episode that now I would say the episode that educated me the most was probably, the involuntary slave. And it's because Ricky Clark can give you so much knowledge, and you'd be like, wait, what did he just say? And you're just not prepared for it. But hell, being I'm 44, the sex episode even taught me stuff. And
Facts.
you'd be like, wait, what? This does what?
Right.
And to me, if you walk into it thinking you know everything, you're walking away with nothing. So um I was thankful that I knew a little bit, but the whole purpose, as the audience is learning, I'm trying my best to learn too. And I even talk about it with my wife after we're done, like, hey, what did you think? What are some of the takeaways from it? Because we're still life learners.
Hmm.
And so that was key. What about you?
Man, I have to say the abortion laws episode, man, where we brought in Carla.
Who's
Um,
on point?
yeah, that episode, man. Like like you have an idea, right? Like you've read the laws
Hmm.
and you know what road rules, the way, what I'm saying. So you know what that means. But I think the internal, mental, and physical experience that women have to go through in that process, right? Um, was, in my opinion, very eye opening because I think for me, I just kind of thought of it as okay, it's an emotional reaction that I have to have, right, in terms of removing the physical. Like I understood that, but like the process within itself, the way it happens, and the lingering effects that it has, I had no clue about, man. I was just sitting there like, oh my gosh, really? Oh, what? What? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, wow. So that
Yeah.
was
Only reason why I knew a little bit about it is because of my human development course,
okay.
and I have a chapter that I have to teach a little bit about that. And I went into some further studies of why Black women were dying at a
Right.
rapid pace when it comes to delivering babies. Like what difference insurance do other people have that our sisters are dying like this? And it was just crazy. So I did, I do agree with you. It was still eye opening.
Yeah.
So as we move forward, um, for what technically our fourth, but sixth, seventh.
Six, it'd be six.
Okay. Um, I'm excited about the groove that we have, but I also want to hear what everybody else got to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So now we'll open the floor to our guests who are listening in to just kind of tap in and give us some reflection of some episodes that you felt were really eye opening for you. And so this is an opportunity for us to kind of see if there's some that we need to bring back, explore a little bit more, or maybe not so much.
Like, was there an episode that y'all feel like we shouldn't have done? Don't all speak at once though.
I like the episode that Miss Carla was on. Like she doesn't even know that she's my best friend, but she came with some knowledge and she communicated the information in such a way that was easy to understand because a lot of times whenever you're talking to a medical professional, the I guess the verbiage that can be utilized can go over your head. But in that episode with her, it was easy to understand. I just wish that some of the resources that are shared, because they go so fast, and then we have to be reminded to go back to the YouTube channel to play back that episode in order to get those resources. So if there's a way that your listeners can have access to the resources that these experts are sharing quicker, I think that would be advantageous.
When you say sharing the information, would that be something that we should post on Instagram, or how should we send it out in our remind emails? What method should we deliver though that information?
That's a very good question. It could be in the body of your YouTube posting if that's one place.
Okay.
Because a lot of times you can have, of course, the episode, but then in the information below that video, that can be where we can gain access to those resources that those panelists are sharing.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's good feedback. Any others?
Good afternoon.
Great.
Greetings.
Larry Jefferson, do I have permission to speak? Dr. Dantrayl, he teased me about getting on here and the way I deliver. But I do have
Deliver.
You
yes,
good, mama?
deliver. But thank you, Dr. Dantrayl. But Mr. Jefferson, if I have permission to speak.
Hey man,
Now, let me just, I want to say this.
don't try to put me on blast.
No, that's what you do to your mother. So I'm going to do it to you. Make sure I have, anyway, let me go on to what I was about to say.
Please do.
While I was really elated with these, like they talked about, sex and everything. I thought they were very informative, but I would just say this. I'm making a statement. It's my opinion. Please, though, consider your audience that you have when it comes to maybe the profanity, because you had older people and younger people. I know they can still get it across without using the other twisted words. That's all I want to say about that. You have to consider your audience with the delivery, whoever's doing the delivery. So that's all.
No, that's good feedback.
Thank you.
That's two. Also, we should consider asking, is there something that we should address for this upcoming session and bring individuals on that people want to hear about that has not been addressed, that YouTube won't block us on?
Right?
Come on, Ty.
I think it's always
Oh, go ahead. Wait. Gail, you can go after Taisha. Sorry.
No, she can go. I don't mind.
I mean, you put your hand up, so it don't matter which one y'all go first to me.
No, so personally for me, the Let's Talk About Sex was like absolutely amazing. That was probably my very best, like favorite one. And so I meant to say like the best one in my opinion, but it was my favorite one. And so, but in addition to that, the podcast on mental health was phenomenal. And personally, I would like to maybe see you guys um not necessarily have like multiple podcasts about mental health, but kind of still tap into it because I think it's so important, especially amongst like the African American community. Um, so that I would definitely say like if I had to like ask for you guys to bring one back, it would definitely be the mental health one for sure.
What made it stand out outside of the others?
I think personally for me, well, the resources that they actually provided and the fact that they were bringing it to the forefront. And it was one thing, I don't remember the young lady's name, but it was one thing that she
Alyssa
kind of,
Torres.
hmm,
Alyssa Torres.
I don't know, maybe. But there was one thing that she chimed in on when she was talking about like the African American community and how maybe not so much now, but how it was at one point like a stigma, and people were like, "Oh, you go to counseling? Like something must be
Mm-hmm.
wrong with you." And now I think more people are embracing it. So I love the fact that she kind of like tapped into like brown and black or people of color, like how we are now becoming more receptive and more accepting to
Right.
saying, hey, you know what? My life is a mess, or I'm overwhelmed, or whatever the case may be. Let me actually like consider counseling. So I just love that that was it. To me, it's not like you're not sweeping it under the rug anymore. It's something that is being looked at as a necessity almost in your everyday walk. Like mental health is just as important as physical health, in my opinion. So
No,
that's just my two.
I appreciate that because somebody else emailed us and told us that they wanted us to do something on mental health, particularly after the whole situation, man, that happened just recently with the young brother that committed suicide. So um, so there are some issues that Black men face that we need to potentially talk about, and we've done an episode. I think that was when we were kind of in the early stages of
Misconceptions.
yeah, and so.
Yeah.
Um, that might be something we need to bring back as another mini series and
Or
just focus strictly on mental health.
True, you know what? I'm just sitting here thinking we've never did anything on suicide prevention or suicide conversations.
Right.
Smith, Dr. Smith, let me get it straight.
Oh, it's okay. And this is just to piggyback on what has been said about mental health. It's perhaps maybe the sessions could be divided, I guess, into maybe two sessions to allow more conversations and more individuals to comment on them so we can be sort of active, I guess, in the conversations as well. But mental health among children,
Hmm,
I think, is something that we need to talk about too. Maybe some experts on, educating us on some signs, some things we should look for. Because the children, they're dealing with so much in school, so much in society, so much in their own homes. And I'm wondering how much of the mental health um, is important to look at when it comes to them and teaching them ways to self-soothe, um, different ways to cope, so that they don't end up where we've seen a lot of individuals end up currently. So that's a session that I would like to see,
Dr.
especially uh, males.
Dr.
Mm.
Smith, when you say that, when you say more interactive, should are you suggesting or asking that we kind of just come out with like maybe one or two questions and then let the audience do most of the questioning?
Maybe like the last 5 or so minutes. So, what you all currently do when you open the floor to us, I think
Mm-hmm.
great. But also, I think maybe giving, like you said, some probing questions to get the audience thinking about things.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Hmm.
Okay.
And having us engage.
Appreciate that.
While
I
while
love it.
we're on mental health, I'd like to add a couple of things. I think what she said about the opportunity to talk more would be great. But I'm also kind of curious about with the way we've had COVID and things, the children that are growing up in that isolation and I was talking to a friend recently and I was thinking about my 2-month-old granddaughter and she's meeting people from the nose down, I mean from the eyes up. That's kind of how they see people initially because when they're first born, you're keeping them safe. So, what is that doing to our children and how they learn to interact with people on a go forth basis? And then those that were in school and got isolated. So, um, I think you guys could have several sessions on different aspects of mental health. And then going to the young man who recently committed suicide, how do those around people that are hurting, how do we identify that? Because from everything I'm reading, everybody was just totally shocked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Cam, do you want to come on and talk about that? Because why your comment makes a great statement, that what you put in the chat, but I also think you could be an assistant as an advocate for that for our podcast. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you're saying? If you're available.
I think Gaia had something to say as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Gaia? She's shopping.
Yes, yes, I am. But I agree. Cam could be a panelist because he is filled with a wealth of knowledge himself. But the only other thing I was going to say is perhaps we could bring back like a political um, piece of the podcast because every season there is a, you know, um, season to be in the know as it pertains to knowing your rights and how to support others. So just keeping that as a staple in your podcast because things change from semester to semester.
Appreciate that.
Hey,
He must not be able to.
hey, one question I did have for the audience, man, was about timing.
What you mean?
Did Because typically we usually start in September with the beginning, right after Labor Day in the fall, and then go into November before Thanksgiving. And I'm just curious to know from the audience, starting October and going to December, did that mean anything at all to anybody? Did anybody like that version better than starting earlier? Just curious. I guess everybody indifferent about it. So, all right.
Yeah. But Cam talked about, and he said he's on a work call, so he can't talk about it. But and Dantrayl, you can let me know. I know we may have touched on it a little bit, but he's saying about financial literacy for the community and talk about not just investments, but savings, purchasing homes, rental properties, and all that kind of stuff, etc. I don't, I don't know if we've had one that we kind of talked about that topic.
Yeah, we haven't like we touched on and we talked
Yeah.
about kind of like that health and being financial healthy and what does that
Hmm.
really look like? With my cousin, we brought her on.
Yeah. And that was at the end of
Hmm.
the other season, right?
Yeah, so we could do something, explore that a little bit more. We would just have to figure out exactly what area, right? Because when you talk about generational wealth, you're talking about generational wealth through home. 'Cause that's a whole episode within itself, right? Or kind of investing stuff like that. So, um,
And then the importance of life insurance. A lot of people go into debt because they're burying their parents, they're burying their spouses, they're burying their children, and a lot of times there's no life insurance set up. There's no no deeds, and then what does that create is a dysfunction at the funeral because one person saying, "Hey, well, I should get this," another person saying, well, "I should get this." Well, grandma ain't left no will behind, or grandfather ain't left no will behind. So now you've created a family war games,
Right.
and I think it's important that we address life insurance too, especially as we get older and start to have those conversations. I remember my mom and I had that conversation about she was about 10 years ago, and we haven't had it since because you don't want to think the idea of your parents passing away, but we all know it has to happen.
Right.
But I think we're so reluctant to have those conversations, and next thing you know, something happened, and now you're in limbo because you don't know where nothing is, and you're fighting, and then you got beef amongst the siblings. It's just a chaotic situation.
Right. But it also goes back to what Mama Jefferson was saying about, kind of knowing our audience. And so we'll have to kind of strategize because our audience is so broad. We have,
Right.
from the 20s all the way, till older generation. And so trying to figure out exactly which session would appeal to that spectrum in a way that would be ideal. And so we'll go to the drawing board. But I love it, man. I mean, I'm all about generational wealth, and you know that because me and you talk about it all the time, man. With the way ideas that we have running around in our mind and trying to, build some extra stream of incomes. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Come on,
On that
Marcus.
line,
Oh, I'm
oh, no,
sorry.
I
Go
wonder
ahead,
if
Miss
maybe
Rita.
oh, excuse me.
Go ahead, Miss Rita.
Oh, okay. Along that line, maybe it could be by decade or something. Maybe one semester you pick one to deal on because you said something about the insurance. Really, that kind of stuff needs to start when young people are in their 20s,
I agree.
and even the retirement stuff. So, maybe break it up through each semester, bring in a little bit of it because or maybe just say at this when you're doing this, when you're this age, you should be looking at these things and then kind of move it on how it changes. So, but
Right.
that's
Right.
very important. My parents both passed the same year, so we were all of a sudden like trying to wrap up
It's
out,
tough.
years of life. Trying to, I mean, they left stuff in place, but then the stuff that's left, what did you do with it? I mean, anyway, I hope you catch what I'm
And
saying.
then knowing what conversations to have. I remember I wrote a paper in my master's degree program, and it was called "Paying to Die,"
Mm,
and it just talked about all the financial bearings that's on whomever is left as a caretaker for whomever when a funeral happens. So I think it's important that we have those conversations, but also retirement. When start planning for that. What are you going to do post retirement? And a lot
right.
of people have no plans post retirement. They sit at the house, chill, and have nothing to do. And if you ain't got nothing to do, you're slowly dwindling away. So some good conversations to be had.
I guess one other thing too. Have y'all done much on health in terms of keeping it moving even once you are, you know, 50, 60, how you just stay healthy and how that should start um, when you're younger even. I probably exercise more now than I did when I was in my 20s. I'd be in better shape if I had started back then. But, just that whole healthy eating, thinking, how it impacts your sharpness and just stuff like that.
Yeah,
Thank
our
you guys.
first series covered pretty much covered health. We did a 3-part series based all on health.
Okay, well, I'm going back to the archives.
Okay, Marcus.
Yeah, so two things. I'm upset that YouTube went ahead and hated on our episode, but appreciate y'all
Well,
for having.
Marcus, I'm gonna tell you this, man. Even though it got taken down on YouTube, it's
Mhm.
still available on all the audio platforms, so you can listen to it on like Spotify, Amazon Music, so forth and so on. So it's still available because I've actually had um, some people reach out to me and say, "Man, I was listening to your episode on Amazon Music or Spotify on vaccinations, and man, that episode was fire." So people are still listening to it; they're just not able to see the actual video portion of it.
Gotcha. I appreciate it, then. Just listening to y'all talk about like the different things that people are recommending, as far as like maybe changes or episodes, it's just interesting, just kind of just like listening and just listening to the ideas of like someone mentioning mental health, someone mentioning like the financial literacy and all the different things that we're talking about, and just how interconnected everything is. If you're talking about like Miss Rita was talking about like the health and exercise and stuff like that, and how that's related to y'all's episode of going to the doctor, which also can relate
Right.
to the vaccine thing, and also mental health, because it has to start somewhere. Like you have, with mental health, you have to be able to, talk to someone about it and not be in denial. So it's all interconnected in some way, shape, or form. And also with the financial literacy episode, it's interesting because not a lot of people in our culture have financial advisors. I have one personally. He works for Northwest Mutual. So if y'all are thinking about it, and I could reach out to him, and maybe have him on as a guest. He has a lot of African American brother. Went to high school with him. He's got a lot of clients in the Dallas area. So just let me know, if it's something that y'all want to talk to him about.
Okay.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
appreciate that connection, man.
Oh man.
What's up?
Michelle Butler says an episode on domestic violence.
Right. Any particular area with domestic violence, like just in
She
general?
said how it affects everyone's mental health, especially the children.
Hmm.
You grow up and see mama beating up your daddy all the time. You think it's fine to have a girl beat you up. But
That's
it
fair.
can be infectious though. And I'm sure
Hey, I got a title
Gail,
for that. I got a title for the episode already, man. Generational curses. Ooh.
man, and Gail and I lost a friend, what, about 2 years ago to domestic violence. Her husband killed her.
Damn.
Crazy. Like you would, like you just didn't see it coming.
Oh
But
yeah, I remember. I was talking to you. I remember that.
yeah, man. So stuff like that is near and dear to us when you start talking about that. So I'm definitely open to having a conversation about that.
One of the things that I was thinking about, man, I think would be really dope is if we had like a RAD podcast, like a mixer or something like that, man, where we can kind of get together and allow our listeners to kind of mix and mingle with some of the guests that we brought on in the past, and just kind of have some professional, like small table talk type of discussions, man, in a space that's really engaging and relaxing, and people can kind of just be who they are, but still gain the information.
Let's
I was
plan
thinking
forward.
about. You said what?
Let's plan forward.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool, particularly with a lot of our guests that we have. And we've had some guests that, are out of town, but maybe an opportunity where we can time it right to where maybe it's around a holiday or something like that when people are in town. Because a lot of people have family and stuff in Dallas.
Right.
So
No,
I thought that,
that's a great idea, bro.
yeah. Because I'm thinking about all the stuff that we're talking about, right? And Demetri was talking about kind of that piece with dividing, kind of some of the questioning and giving more amplitude time for our guests to really kind of ask some questions that maybe they haven't really thought of, but kind of in those small group settings, people feel a lot more comfortable, asking some of those real personal questions versus, coming onto the podcast that's being recorded, right? So, and then, what Gabe was talking about in terms of access to resources, maybe having some tables with flyers and brochures that people can kind of physically take away. So I was thinking about that, man, as we were talking. It might be something that we can, further down the line, maybe explore
Absolutely.
when we get some more sponsorship.
Right. Definitely that. Definitely that. But I like the idea, and maybe we can just do a live podcast that same day.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. All right, man. I got a quote for you today, brother.
Let's go.
Oh, did anybody else have anything? Was anything else in the
Yeah.
chat?
I don't see anything. Does anybody else have any other questions for Dantrayl drops his quote on us?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to give you guys kudos. I really have liked seeing how this has grown, and just want to say keep up the good work.
All right, thank you, Miss Reed. I appreciate we
Appreciate it.
definitely appreciate your support.
Yeah.
I think you're good to go, my brother.
All right. So this quote comes from Miss Sherry Turkle, excuse me. She states, connecting in SIPs may work for gathering discrete bits of information. They may work for saying, I'm thinking about you, or even for saying, I love you. But they don't really work for learning about each other, for really coming to know and understand each other. And we use conversations with each other to learn how to have conversations with ourselves. So a flight from conversation can really matter because it can compromise our capacity for self-reflection.
Love it.
That's it.
That's legit, there.
Yeah. Well, brother,
Well, hey,
man, I
man.
appreciate you, man. It's been a pleasure. Happy holidays to
Always.
you and the family, man. And we'll schedule some time, man, to get up and dive into the next semester, man. So I'm excited about the road. I think this semester, like I said before, man, was going to really set us apart. And I think we're finally getting our groove and we rolling.
Yeah, I agree, man. I couldn't imagine doing this with anybody else, so I appreciate you.